welcome back to the podcast, Brooke Shields.
Thank you.
We love you.
We
love you here. I found your book to be so comforting.
Oh, good.
It was like I mean, I know you've written other books, but this book is about aging, your thoughts on aging, how your experience in aging. It's actually called Brooke Shields is Not Allowed to Get Old, which I would imagine to be a very real feeling for you. And as you discuss in the books, there's so much stuff in here about what it's like to feel like public property and to feel like your physicality, your age, your body was kind of owned by the public because of how young you started working. And I don't think that's, obviously a very common experience. I remember seeing you on Drew Barrymore and watching the two of you kind of connect on all of the dysfunction that you experience. And I was like, oh God, I hope there's more women out there that they can connect with about it because it's such an unusual experience.
It is. And we had a very different reaction to the experience, but I always felt very protective of her. I've always felt like that. And I'm older, so that, helped it. I think it's more universal than we think it is, insofar as the ability for the world. Now it's everywhere on Instagram or TikTok or comments or whatever it is. Everybody has so much to say about everybody else, and we didn't ask for it. You're not, and you don't just have to be in the public eye.
Right.
You're just a normal person who gets an Instagram account. And it's so I think that that part's more universal, is that we're constantly commented on our beauty. There's opinions. And that they're voiced. And there's the funniest thing happened to me. I was doing an Instagram Live the other day for the book. All of a sudden it pops out in bold letters, because of course it had to be all caps, just in case I didn't hear the message. And it was, I really wish you looked the way that you used to look when you were younger. And I just laughed. I had to share it with everybody live. And I said, hey, I couldn't tell if it was a guy or not, but I'm sure it probably was a guy. And I said, read the title, dude. I go, that's the point.
It's amazing to me because there's a story in the book too where you reveal your age to some guy in his wine cellar at his house, and he's like, "I really wish you hadn't told me that." He says he was born in 1972. You admit that you were born in 1965, and he's like, almost disgusted that you would reveal that to him, and then had to deal with his own age identity. Like it was bothersome to remind him of how old he was.
Yes.
I mean, it's unreal that men feel like they can say this to us or say this to you or any woman. I mean, it's just unreal. So ridiculous.
Also, even complimenting someone like, oh, you look great. Well, did you think I didn't look great before? Do you think I've had work done? Do you think that I've had that? I'm like, it's like, why is it so quick? No, I know women, I always want to celebrate my friends. So I'm always going to be positive about that. It's being asked, Britney Spears being asked about her virginity. It's me being asked to stand up so that Barbara Walters can compare her measurements to me, to a 15-year-old. Like, it's so absurd, but has been so allowed and perpetuated for so long.
And still,
so I think that's it,
But it's still happening. It's not like,
oh yeah,
like that with Barbara Walters, that happens to you, 50 years ago, 40 years ago? Like,
but it doesn't end.
It doesn't. It's kind of like, well, aren't we supposed to be learning? In the beginning of the book, you talk about, you tell a story where you're being interviewed by a reporter, and they keep asking you the same question, hoping that you're going to give a different answer. And at some point, you say like, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm giving you the answer you want. And there's like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You start learning to play certain games, and you just to get through these things, because that they don't really care. Or I had to start learning how to speak in sentences that couldn't be chopped up to have a completely different meaning when they're put in print. Yeah,
And one of the things that's really, really admirable and very obvious to any outsider is that you have, over the years, really realized as you've aged how to stand in your power. One example being, that Tom Cruise incident that you speak about in the book, where he was talking about medication and with Matt Lauer, I believe, and he was calling Matt Lauer glib because he was talking about you and your postpartum and that you didn't really need to take any medication. I think that was basically the gist of it.
Yeah, and
knowing
I didn't know.
nothing about your situation, knowing
not having ovaries, by the way.
not being a woman, and then you stood up for yourself very publicly with an op-ed in the New York Times, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and he came over and finally apologized to you. But taking that on, like that in it itself, a lot of people would be scared to take on a celebrity of that magnitude, but he was so. I totally would never miss a beat to do exactly what you did because he was so misguided and so misinformed and has absolutely no business speaking on that subject matter whatsoever. So how did that feel, like having that apology come from him? How did it feel to stand up for yourself in that way?
It felt very justified. And I think, that you don't need the justification to stand up for yourself, but that wasn't the way I was raised. And so this felt very clear because I was also not just fighting for myself. I was fighting for women and the terror that postpartum depression can hoist on you and the danger of it. And there was so much at stake for women. So to have someone so considered powerful take all of this that had been put forth to them, women, for the first time, really, and just undermine it on such a level, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. And I fired my publicist over it because she said, do just that. Don't honor it with an answer. And I said, don't honor it with an answer. That I'm honoring myself and other women who stand to be scared and hurt or do just need and deserve the information. And so I did have a bigger, not a bad responsibility, but this like bigger reason to do it because it wasn't selfish as much as it was because I'd known him forever. A lot of the antics that I see people have, they're not in my life daily. So it's like their antics are just like.
I like antics.
Yeah.
I like that word to describe it.
It's good. It's like, but this wasn't that anymore. This wasn't personal in a weird way. He made it personal.
Yeah.
And that was his mistake because, not only was I like America's sweetheart by that, had been or whatever. And that's a joke we use all the time in my house. But this was, women were, they were outraged. And I even said to him, I said, you kind of barked up the wrong tree because of my ability to respond and because of what I have behind me that has been growing for 40 plus years. So, and I said, and it's something you're so not qualified to talk about. And you're qualified to talk about what you want to talk about for yourself and your body. But this is, you are way out of your lane. And I said, so unfortunately, it kind of backfired on you. And it did. I mean, you had people coming out and people were still talking about it, and it's over 20 years later, So I think it was a misstep. I think it was a mistake that he fessed up to making. And I think he felt like it was a mistake. And he did apologize for it. And it was personal.
Right.
And, did I need him to do it publicly? Not really, because it was a different level of what he needed to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. I want to flag something in your book too, because you talk about having a grand mal seizure, which is which is pretty serious because you were training pretty hard or rehearsing pretty hard for a Broadway show, right? And you were we talk about water a lot and how much I loathe water on this podcast. I cannot drink it. I find it to be so boring. And I constantly have to put electrolytes in it just to flavor it. And you have once again proved my point that drinking tons and tons and tons of water does nothing to help you, especially if there is a heat wave happening. You are depleting your system. The water itself is not good enough. You need the electrolytes and the sodium to hold on to the water. So tell us about your story. I mean, yes, I have the same exact ones. LMNT, of course, they're the best. So you passed out at a restaurant. You were going a million miles an hour. It was the middle of a heat wave. You're rehearsing for a Broadway play. And
I go into this restaurant to thank one of the women that worked there for coming in to see a run through. And as I walk in, two women come up to me, and I don't know what they were talking about. I think maybe they were talking about the documentary. I don't know. On the video, you see me, engage with them. And then you see me sort of like go like this. And then you see me do this a lot. And then I just go down. And I hit my face on a serving station. And one of the women that came up to me was a registered nurse. What are the chances?
Wow.
It was really bad. And then I woke up in the ambulance.
With Bradley Cooper.
With Bradley Cooper, as one does.
Hey, whenever anyone has a grand mal seizure in New York City, Bradley Cooper appears. Just everyone should know that. It just
appears. And the first thing that goes through your mind is, I must have not made it.
But you're good friends with him, or you're friendly with him. He lives in your neighborhood. So he was there because your assistant had reached out to his assistant. La da 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 da. Was that the first? Is that the first and last grand mal seizure you've had, Brooke?
Yes.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, that is the first one. I have fainted before, at times, and I have low blood pressure, which is why I need the electrolytes and I need the salt.
Mm-hmm.
So I need salt in my diet because of that, because I have low blood pressure. And so the times that I've fainted have all been because somehow the sodium's low.
So no to all our listeners. Water isn't just going to do it on its own. So drinking copious amounts of water with nothing in it is useless. You might as well have a Diet Coke.
But also in the hospital, do you remember what happened in the hospital?
Yes, that the doctors were, you go ahead. You tell it.
They were the two doctors. Okay, they were men. This is not a male hating thing, but they both, one said, "Are you restricting salt, ma'am, because of dietary reasons?" I was like, excuse me. First of all, don't call me ma'am.
And don't talk to me in that tone.
Yes. And I said, and second of all, I said, I'm a 58-year-old woman. I look younger, bloated. No, I do not restrict salt. And I find that very rude for you to ask me that question. And my husband put his arm on my arm, and I'm like, don't tell me to change my tone. I didn't like that tone. He doesn't have to like my tone. And then I got asked it again by another one of the nurses that came in, the male nurses, that, are you sure now? You weren't definitely. And I was like, wow, would you ask a man that question? I don't think so.
No,
I just don't.
No, of course not. And the way men talk to women in all, medical ways, yes, there are great doctors out there who obviously ask the right questions, but you speak a lot in this book about advocating medically for yourself in many different circumstances where you've been stuck in the hospital, you broke your femur, you were in the hospital for over a month, I think.
Yeah.
And it was during COVID. So or you were also in the hospital during COVID. So you've been through it a lot, and you understand the kind of way that women are spoken to. I mean, you got an accidental vaginal rejuvenation in the hospital that you didn't ask for.
It wasn't accidental. It wasn't accidental. It was a little, I got a twofer, got a gift. He thought he was doing me some big favor. I was just shocked. Absolutely.
By tightening your vagina. So she goes in. Yeah. Wait, so tell that story. That's absolutely absurd.
It's insane. And also, let me just say one thing before I get to my vagina yet again, which always is a very topic of conversation. I also, it's not lost on me that I'm blessed enough to be able to have good healthcare and attention. Like I was taken care of well. I wasn't being, shoved in a hallway something. So it's like, I sort of say like, it's very hard to self-advocate for yourself, but they're a little bit afraid of me because I'm famous or something. And so like, but that's like a luxury. I mean, without that, it's even 100 times worse for women and women of color to have the space and have anybody's ear to be able to self-advocate and ask the questions. And how do we know what the right questions are? Anyway, I was asked by my gynecologist after babies, actually, as that was a bit wrong on the timing, but if there was any discomfort ever because of labia. And I've been experiencing it my entire life, like, cheerleading and tight jeans, skinny jeans, and then spinning and sex and all this stuff, right? And I just thought you just had to deal with stuff. Some people had one boob different, some people, and I didn't know anything about it. And when I was asked if I had that kind of discomfort, it was such a revelation. She said, "There's nothing to be ashamed of." She said, "I see it all the time, and it's very common, and it's very fixable. It unfortunately falls under cosmetic surgery, so with insurance probably isn't going to cover it." And so she said, "Why don't you get a consult and see if it makes sense to you?" And after having something bother me for so many decades, you can't even believe there might be an option. And so he drew this whole sort of diagram about how kind of easy it was to do and how he does it all the time. And I was talking about just the discomfort. I signed up for it, got it done, came back, a week later or post-op or whatever. And, he says, "Oh, it's more difficult and it took me longer." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't need all the details. Thank you very much." Like, if it's good, it's good.
You're like, we
If I
can watch the
spin-
video when we have a night of nothing to do.
Because I'm sure you have that. So I just like, "Is it all good? Am I healing? Is everything fine? How long will it take?" All the questions. And then he said, "Well, I threw in a little rejuvenation for you." And I said, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? That's a different word than reduction. That's a different word than reduction." He goes, "Well, yeah, no, I just tightened you up a bit." And I said, "You did what?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, am I planning on being a porn star?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't." I was like,
Plus, you had C-sections. Right? Did you?
I had 2 C-sections.
You didn't even give birth vaginally.
No, my babies were IVF. I could argue I'm still a virgin.
Oh, God, it's so gross. Men are so gross. One of the things, I know we have to move on to callers, Catherine, but I do want to touch on one thing that I found very moving, Brooke. I thought this was really not only brave, but it was just a sign of what age brings us and the wisdom it brings us and the confidence that we gain in allowing ourselves to be honest with ourselves. And one of the things that you write about towards the end of the book is the kind of what ifs in your life. Like, what if my career had gone in a different direction? What if I had gotten this movie, Dangerous Liaisons, that I was up for, that was given to Uma Thurman, who got the part? What if, you had been on a different trajectory? And you kind of talk about, the way that you think of things, and not in an ungrateful way at all, not in a way of not understanding how fortunate you are and how iconic you are and what that brings to the table, but in a way that is thoughtful and kind of looking at the past. And I think a lot of women are unable to do that until they are a certain age. They are unable to admit that they would have liked to, they're wondering what could have been if things had gone in a different direction. So I found that to be very powerful, because people will always be like, "Oh, no, everything that's meant to be is meant to be, and that wasn't meant for me." I find myself saying that a lot of times when things don't go my way. And it's more like it's part self-convincing and part making sure you're not being a crybaby, right?
Moaning, yeah.
Right. So, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, express to our listeners, like, how you came about admitting to even feeling that and then wanting to write about it for other women.
It's something that has I've pined for, and has pained me for so long. And there's this validation of my talent, right? And and it's not about looks or beauty or anything like that, because that I never put too much stock in, because it was just a job. And also education was more important to me. So I got fortified really quickly by going to college. So that was my version of rebellion, just for myself. Um, but, I've had the same therapist for quite some time, and it's a theme that keeps coming back. And it's a theme that is, what if, or I know I'm just famous and nobody thinks I'm really that talented, or, well, thank God I found comedy because that's what I do really well. But yeah, I still don't. And I started to, I always believed I was less than, because I wasn't what these other actresses who were very serious were. And, then I would work with some of them in a comedic setting, and I would see them struggle with comedy. And then I would think, oh, that's interesting. We're different players on the same team. When I don't play ball sports. Anyway, I mean, any kind of ball sports lately.
No lacrosse?
Yeah, can you imagine?
No, I can't
I
imagine
was a
any of us
cheerleader.
playing lacrosse.
Uh-uh.
I'm still trying to figure out what lacrosse is, quite frankly.
Yes, it's a lot. It's the cribbing or something like that. But I just like saying ball sports because it just feels good coming out of my mouth, and I think it's funny. But this less than, and then this piece that I used to counteract it with, yes, but Brooke, not only are you a good comedian, but you also, you've built this career and people trust you and you've got education and you can write. And so and it was always a justification. And I thought, well, if I'm still doing this in my 50s, clearly I still have a problem with it. And I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I don't know. I don't even know if that's the kind of work I want to do. But to have not been chosen whenever I went out and tried for those parts, and then to be too famous and too recognizable to even be up for those parts, it always felt like this. It may have not even been a missed opportunity, that I may have never even got that. That didn't matter. It was how I demeaned my talent. And I always focus on, well, I'm a survivor, and look, I'm healthy. I'm not a total train wreck. And that's because of education and parents. And, my therapist would say, you got to give yourself some credit for your innate character. You do have innate character that sees things and chooses it the way you choose. She said, you're not just a product of your parents or society or the press or your history. She's like, there is something that's Brooke in there that is just her. And that kind of was like, what? That is a new concept. But the pining for being seen like the actresses I admire was so persistent for so long. And I could work on all the other stuff, right? And just feel good about it. But I just recently had the opportunity to act in front of, basically, it was hardly opposite because I had all the dialogue, two very prominent female, brilliant, award-winning, lovely women. One is in her late 60s to early 70s. One I'm a little bit older than, and the women I admired and I've known over the years, you meet everybody. And I got asked to do this one, it's 2 days, but we just did 1 day so far in front of them. And it involved only emotion and only tears and only all this stuff that makes me cringe. And I thought, oh, well, don't do it. You don't want to do it. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You can't do it. And then I thought, well, I can't say no to this opportunity when for decades I've been asking for the opportunity. Now all of a sudden I get it and I'm not going to say yes because of fear. Well, you're pussy. Like, what are you doing? Like, I was just there were so many emotions. And I went there and I came out of the gate a little too hot because I was trying and I was nervous and I was sweaty. And then I just sat down and said, you know what? They're not going to fire you. You're in one day. They obviously think you can do it. They don't want to look bad and have it be your fault. They don't really care about you, not the actresses, but the production. I don't even know what the real name of the production is, believe it or not, because it's also top secret. And I thought, you don't want to burn bridges, or just do it. Just do it. And I went to the director and I said, I think I'm trying to do too much. And I don't think it's right. And I said, because I have a theory about this. And she said, I was coming over to tell you that right now. She said, you don't have to try hard. She said, it's all there and we're watching it. She said, just trust and just do it. And what happened at the end of the day after having to do it over and over and over again was I got validation. And I'm not ashamed to say I needed it. I was a little girl in those moments. I was a little girl with those actresses and I was a little girl with, mommy and daddy, the director. And each one of the women in their own way gave me and they gave it to me as if, you did a good job. I heard it as they thought I did a good job, right? Which was what I needed at that moment. And I knew it too, I did. But I wasn't really open to hearing it. The director came up to me after a 16-hour day and she said, that was really beautiful. And I said, oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad it worked out. And thank you for having me. And, and then she went, no. She's from Germany. Puts her hands on my shoulder. She said, I think you need to hear this. You blew me away.
Oh.
And that was it. And thank you for being open. And I needed that.
Yeah.
And then whether I do any more of that again, I probably don't even really covet it in the same way. And should I be ashamed that I needed 3 women to, was I lucky that I got that chance? Yes. But I also just needed to know it from myself and without even getting it from them. What the director said was icing on the cake because at the end of it, now I called my husband before I heard any of that and I just said, he's like, how'd you do? I said, I did it. Now, I didn't say I knocked it out of the park and I'm going to get, little gold men just, all over the place. But it didn't matter about that anymore. It didn't matter about awards. It didn't matter about those things that as a little girl and going to the Academy Awards, sitting in the back up nosebleed seats and thinking one day I'm going to get there one day, like that silliness, and to just say, you know what, I'm okay and I am good enough, and I can release that from myself, and just I can release it, which was just, it was a pretty extreme, great way to get it. I have to say, I would have liked. I would still be working on getting it without such obvious validation, but it was. I no longer have the same pining that I used to. And I also look at my life now, and I definitely would not have the life. I would not be able to live the life that I'm living had I not had the level of fame and access. If I had just been on the path that I thought I was going to be on, the Natalie Portman path when she did The Professional, which was sort of her pretty baby, and working with the Louis Malles and Zaffarellis and really being ensconced in that world. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, turned on its head and you've got dolls made after you, It always rocked me.
I think anyone can relate to that whole notion of thinking that you're going to be going in one direction and finding out that that's not your destiny, and then also embracing what your destiny is, which is something you've also done.
I just recently said no to singing opposite Cynthia Erivo and in Lincoln Center, and I was begged to do it. And what idiot would say no to that? And I turned it down and I said, you know what? This is not my strength, my forte. I would have loved to have said did it. I'm not, I'm okay not having your vocal prowess. Like I'm okay. And that's another piece too, is really knowing what your strengths are. And I think that that's an important thing to be willing to admit, yeah, I'm not that great at that. I'm fine with it. And they wanted me for some reason, but walking away from something too that you just know in your heart of hearts you won't be able to soar with is a very new concept for me. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back with Brooke Shields. And we're back with Brooke. Okay. So you talk about you started a brand. Well, it was started with you wanted a community, to build community with Commence, which is something that you have been thinking about doing for women over 40 who are going through all of the same things, all of the same emotions, all of the feelings of kind of stepping into who you really are, which is something, it sounds very cliche, but I mean, I'm 49. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months. I've never been happier in my life because I understand now where the joy is and to go after that instead of going after all of the other stuff that we think we have to go after to make us relatable or relevant or successful. Like now
Right.
I know where
Or happy.
yeah, I don't date idiots. I don't do stupid things like I used to when I'm younger. So the joy and the power of aging is more than what we've been talking about, more than what we've been hearing about for the last many years about your confidence and about your sexual prowess or how you come into your own. It's more than that. It's about, and this is a word that you use a lot too, which I use a lot in my book that's not out yet. But finding joy in everything you do, enjoying your life, especially where you at the stage you're in, where your girls are gone, they're often doing their thing, and you have to rediscover what are the things that make you happy and prioritizing yourself, and also saying no to all of the bullshit that we've said yes to our whole lives because we want to please other people. And then you've also have this hair brand because everyone loves your hair, obviously. You have the most famous hair, and it's for women who are going through menopause, going through perimenopause, dealing with hair thinning. Do you want to talk a little bit about Commence, Brooke?
Yeah, I started it as the community to really empower women to age joyfully. I mean, joy was a word we've always had with us, and joyfully, and we say fearlessly, but it's not a call to action. It's not pressure. It's just there's joy to be had, and we've done so much in our lives. Whatever it is, we've gotten to this age. That's tremendous, right? You start having the conversations with women, and they are craving it. And it's pervasive. And the women that I know who are over 40 are fabulous. And they are not, they're like so down on themselves. They're wondering what's next. And this sense of joy as to there's more to come is not what society or the beauty industry really is the narrative they're feeding us, right? And it's certainly not historical. So we analyzed who we were as a brand, and we said, you know what? We're not just a hair care brand. We're not just a beauty brand. We are a care brand. It is, we always say take care. And there's a lot that means that. Take care of yourself. Take care to be listening to yourself. Take care when it's offered. And be good to you. Like, find where you are joyous and cut out the people and the things and the experiences and the time sucks that are out there. And let's see what we would do with this extra time or how we'd feel. But we started to develop hair care with very strategic, smaller groups with very, very active ingredients working directly with the lab. So we're not even a masstige, I guess they call it, brand. We've kept it small. We've kept the price point very relatable. And they deal with scalp health. Scalp health is a thing in women that changes the most dramatically. The actual follicle, the root where it goes into the pore actually shrinks. it's so fair, the things that shrink when you get older and the things that drop and get bigger. Hair is one of them. Your scalp health, there's patchiness of dry, hormonal reactions, hormonal changes, luster, all of these things. And we went a deep dive and we created about 6 products that dealt with addressing scalp health and therefore hair health from the root out. So that is the one piece. We will be moving into other categories. I don't want to become just a hair care brand or just proliferate that and then just hold up things and say, buy this because I said it. I put my own money into it, then I ran out of my own money, then I had to raise money. Startups are brutal. And, I spend more of my time trying to raise money and more of my time pivoting so that our team is amazing. I've never been a CEO. I can't believe the things that are coming out of my mouth when I'm like going like this in a book and I'm just learning and I'm coming into exactly the clarity that started the company when I started the community. And that is really solving all of what makes a woman's life her life in this. And beauty is a big piece of it. Body care is a big piece of it. There's scent is a big piece of it. There's so many things that do give us joy that I used to think of as luxuries or, I don't know, not
Or take for
arrogance, but
granted, right? I mean, we take for granted all of that stuff. We don't, yeah.
or frivolous to spend time on. Now my time, a lot of it gets spent on just me. So the company is called to Commence, and the community is the Commence community, and they keep growing.
Well, on that note, I think we should give some advice to callers. Catherine, do we have time for a couple of calls?
We have time for probably like one
Okay,
call.
great.
If
Let's
that
do it.
works.
Let's do it.
So we have caller Dee Dee. She says, Dear Chelsea, I'm a 28-year-old mother, a married mother of 2, and I've always been close with my own mother. Don't get me wrong, she was a good mom, but I probably could have used a mother more than a friend sometimes when growing up. Nowadays, we do a lot together. She comes over almost every Saturday to watch football and drink beer. We go out, and we even went to Chelsea's show in Atlanta a couple years back. But since she hit menopause and started hormone replacement therapy, she is like a cat in heat. She's always been one to look good and presentable. She's a beautiful woman and is no stranger to male attention. She was always cool and confident, not a tryhard. Now it seems like she needs every male's attention and females too. She overanalyzes every outfit and photo she's in and will ruin a whole outing with her mood if she feels she doesn't look amazing. She also drinks to excess and sometimes makes a fool of herself. If she isn't drunk, she's irritable. I have 2 young kids. All their grandparents are dead besides her. I thought she might enjoy stepping into her grandmother role and being there for me in ways she wasn't when I was a teen, but she's proving to me that all she cares about is happy hour with meaningless acquaintances. She's 51 and has never had a successful romantic relationship. She doesn't think she should have to answer for any of her bad behavior and brushes it under the rug or plays a victim when I call it out. We don't have the best history with communication, but for the past few years, I've really worked on myself and how I handle my relationships, and I wish she could do the same. How do I tell my mom she's letting me down without the message being completely lost? I'd love to hear from you ladies. Signed, Disappointed Daughter.
Hi. Hi, this is our special guest today, Brooke Shields.
Hi, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
She's a mother of 2 daughters, so I'm sure she can relate to some degree to this.
Yeah.
Well, that's really tough. It's really hard when your mom is embarrassing. But
All moms are embarrassing, though, I
yes,
have to
this
say.
is true. All
I
parents
got
are
an
embarrassing.
earful last night. You're annoying. You're just annoying. So,
I know. And we've been through all that. I don't want to be mean to her by any means, but
No, and I don't think judgment from your children is how that this kind of phase of her life is going to, how she's going to either snap out of it or grow up a little. I don't think it's going to come from you because it's
Right.
really hard, Brooke, I would imagine, to take criticism from your children and judgment.
And for the most part, that's sort of their job. I mean, I have 18 and 21, and they're not moms yet, but they are, one is in particular is full of judgment, and it's constant. And her version of it is she knows she needs to individuate from me, and she doesn't know how to do it. So she fights me to hate me, and then it can justify her leaving. But I feel like as the age your mom is, I think she's scared. I think she's feeling that about herself. She's watching you. I don't know how old your baby is, but as you watch your daughter sort of launch pad into this vibrant area of their lives and your ovaries and everything is going to work for it, and you are watching what you think is your demise, right? It's very unsettling to see the beauty in your daughter, and then to look in the mirror and not see the same thing. And then you step outside and the world attacks you for being 50, you're over the hill, you're this, you're not represented. You're either this 20-year-old girl at the bar or you're in Depends and dentures. That's what they have relegated us to. And I think that I don't know. I mean, again, I don't give advice, but what I will say is that the times that my children, because my mom was in a very different, broken place, and she was older. But the times that as a mom, I have said to my girl, that I have been with my girls, and they've looked at me and led with just love and said, I know it must be hard, Mom, but I think you're beautiful. Or they've said, Mom, I think that you should don't put yourself down. Like, you taught me to love myself. You've got to you taught me how to be like this. The problem is if she's so resistant, I mean, she has to do the work on herself, because nothing you say that's positive is going to make her like herself.
No, but I do think positivity goes a long way in helping people face themselves. Like, judgment doesn't do, you just create resistance. You create oh, I'm going to rebel against you. And even though you are in more of the mother role, like you guys kind of sounds like you have flipped your roles, and you are a mother, and I'm assuming you're responsible, and she's seeing that. I think everything Brooke said is spot on. Like, I think you have to really look at her with some compassion and understanding of what she might be going through. And instead of the judgment, I have a friend who's dealing with this with their mother, very similar circumstances. And she really did just flip the script. She's like, no, I'm just going to go at her with compassion and love and tell her about all the wonderful things about her until she really starts to believe them herself. And when she does start to believe them herself, she is going to be a little bit different. And there are different ways, you can do that too, with books, and hopefully encouraging her to, do some therapy. Maybe you can volunteer to do some therapy with her, just to push her and to get, not because something is wrong, but to push her to really find out what her purpose is, right? Like, to experience this life in the best way. She's now in her 50s. This is a whole new opportunity to have a whole new life. I look at 50 as kind of like a reset. Like, you get to now.
And that's kind of how I saw it. I was like, why is she spending so much time worrying about validation from others or how she looks and this and that, when it's like, this could be such a big, beautiful awakening time. But
she's not feeling it herself.
You nailed it with what you said, Brooke. And she has been kind of like, I started reading more again, and she was like, oh, like, she asked me recently kind of, do I have a recommendation or whatever? And I was like, oh, so she is kind of, I noticed, kind of picking up on, just kind of, if he wants, I'm kind of being the example.
Yes.
Like, how many people do I need to be an example for? But if that's what I need to do to get my mom to see her full potential and beauty and everything, then I'm absolutely willing to.
And you're thankful for, what I've said worked for me is whenever my daughters will say something like, well, Mom, I got that from you. It doesn't give me anything to fight against, because I love what I see in her. And then she's attributing it to, Mom, that's what you should, I want you to feel what I feel. And I wouldn't be able to feel these things had you not taught me that I could feel this good about myself. And even in therapy, you have to be really careful, because it should be like, I would love this for me. And then, otherwise they feel attacked, and it's like like an intervention, and you're there to tell them everything they're doing wrong. And the flipping of it is I tell my younger daughter, tug of war only works if both people are pulling, right? And so you don't do it, and you lead with this kind of kindness, because they're not hearing any of that kindness reflected back to them when they look in the mirror. They're seeing just what they're not. They're not this enough. They're not young enough. They're not thin enough. They're not that enough. They have too many wrinkles, blah, 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 blah. And the tapes just keep going. And the more you're reflected to her as in like, wow, Mom, this, but this is, I learned so much and I got this and it's so much fun. And why don't we start our own little book club? And,
Definitely.
And, and then you could talk about characters and then you're not talking about yourself. Like, there's ways and
start with Brooke's book. This is a great book for you and your mother to read together. And that's about aging. You can just
it's funny and
it's about her relationship with her daughters and how she's stepping into her own confidence over the course of her life at different ages and kind of the various bursts of self-empowerment that women receive and experience. This is a great thing. Start reading books with your mom and start finding books that are actually going to have like an impact on her perspective. And, you don't have to read.
And her value, she doesn't feel valuable right now.
Right.
And you're gone.
That was my next question, is if you have any book recommendations. So that's perfect.
There are lots of others.
There's another good.
Oh, well, I was planning on reading yours anyway. I'm excited.
Okay, well, I mean, I just, thank you.
We just had Mel Robbins on the podcast. She wrote a book called Let Them, which is really about letting other people do their shit and stop trying to control other people and letting them, which is good for you and good for your mother, because
you could read it together.
I don't want you to think like, oh, this is such an onus on me. You already have to take care of your children and now you have to take care of your mother. Listen, we're given as much as we can handle. Clearly your mom, like you're in a more capable position right now in this moment in time than your mother is. So take that responsibility on with joy. Like that is a great gift that you're able to give to your mother.
Not a burden. Don't look at it like that because you'll resent it.
Right. You don't want to resent your mother. You want to help your mother. You want her to flourish. So think of some other activities that you guys can do together that don't involve happy hour or don't involve going to a bar. And maybe you do join an actual book club. Maybe you find some other activities where she can like meet people, or it's a social environment, but it's not all about the drinking and just hanging out and doing nothing, And
a lot of drinking is about avoidance. I mean, it's pretty obvious and clear. Yeah. And she feels sexier when she's drinking. And, she comes out of her shell and she becomes that image of what she used to be, and who she is not just enough. It's beautiful. But she's got to feel that love for her own actual self. And I think it's a very fraught period of she's threatened right now that her value is just being diminished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all I want for her is to see that for herself, see her how I see her and see her full potential. So thank you guys. That was awesome advice.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you called in.
Me too.
Have a great holiday too.
Yeah.
You too.
Thanks, Dee
Happy
Dee.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back to wrap up with Brooke Shields. And we're back with Brooke Shields. Okay, so how do people find Commence?
If you just look up Shop Commence, all lowercase, shopcommence.com, COMMENCE. And it's all about really the new beginnings and beginnings of this era and being as joyful and healthy and just in our lives and proud of who we are.
And
so it's
are you still
all the product.
Are you still doing the groups too? If people want to join in on the groups?
Yeah. I want to bring books into it as well and really have it be a world of care.
I love it. And Brooke's new book is Brooke Shields is Not Allowed to Get Old, Thoughts on Aging as a Woman. It is out. It'll probably be out as soon as you hear this podcast, I'm sure. By the time we put this out, it will be available at all places, all bookstores. And I was going to say wherever you listen to your podcasts. And then I'm like, this is a book. This is not a podcast.
Well, no, and my podcast didn't get renewed. So I don't have that on my plate, which is fine. But I went into the audio recording of the book. So the book is also on Audible and audio, and it's all me.
Okay, well, it was...
You want to listen to me anymore.
Well, we do. We always want to listen to you, Brooke. I totally appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Congrats on everything. Please say hello to your lovely husband, Chris Henchy, for me.
I will. You look like you're in a cozy place. I wish I was there.
I am. I'm in my happy place now. Have a great day. Okay.
Thank you. You too. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.